Okay. The Gemara begins. Chaf Gimel Amud Beis. Yosef. Yosef Hahumer Rabbanim Kamed Reb Shmuel Bar Nachmeni. There was this rabbi sat in front of Reb Shmuel Bar Nachmeni. The Yosef Kamar Mishmeid Reb Yeshua ben Levi, and he said in the name of Reb Yeshua ben Levi, he said the following: Manayin, how would I know? L'chol isurim sh'im Torah. How do I know every isur in the Torah? By the following cases, that if they're usur to eat, you're not allowed to benefit from it. And which two specific Torah topics that it says that you're not allowed to eat it and you're not allowed to benefit? So the manihu, what are those two? Chometz and Pesach, Shara Niskol. Chometz and Pesach. How do I know I'm not allowed to benefit from Chometz and Pesach? Ushara Niskol, the ox that's going to be stoned, that we learned that even after you stone it, you're not allowed to resell the dead carcass. So how do I know by these two things you're not allowed to benefit from it? So the Gemara, that's what this rabbi asked, this like a young student asked Rav Shmuel Bar Nachmeni. So the Gemara interrupts. Menayin, how do I know? Typically, let us say, it doesn't the pasuk say by chometz lo ye ochel, you're not allowed to eat it. So eating it means probably benefit. So the Gemara said the student didn't like that. He said lo ye ochel. His interpretation of lo ye ochel means only isra chila mashmaleh. He thinks that isra it only includes not allowed to eat it. Isra hana to benefit loy mashmaleh. He can't see that. Torah says, don't eat chametz. How do you see that you're not allowed to benefit from it? So the Gemara says, tepik lei min nevela. Let's learn it out from nevela. Where nevela, the Torah prohibits you to eat nevela, but permits you to benefit from it. So it's mashma that you could deduce from that, whenever the Torah doesn't specifically allow you to benefit from something, you're not allowed to benefit from something. And so chametz, the Torah says, don't eat it. It must be, since the Torah didn't write, you're permitted to benefit from it, like it wrote by Nevela. So it must be that chametz, you can't benefit from it. So that's a good source. And for the Gemara, Savalok Rabbi Yehuda. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda that there is a good reason why the Torah says by Nevela how to benefit. The Omar Devarim Kik Savam. You have to read the Chumash literally by Nevela. And by Nevela, the Torah only allows you a specific type of benefit. Giving it to a ger as a gift, right? A ger toishav is somebody who's makabel sheva mitzvahs, or selling it to a goy. But you can't do the opposite. You can't sell it to a ger toishav or give it to a regular goy as a gift. The Torah is giving you specific instructions on how to benefit from it. So from that point alone, that's why the Torah had to write exactly how to benefit from it. But really, the word lyseichli doesn't mean you can't. It could only mean lyseichli only means you're not allowed to eat it. But you're permitted to benefit from it. So again, I don't have a source by chametz. How would I know by chametz and shara niskol you're not allowed to benefit from it? Isavalok Rabbi Yehuda. So then why don't you hold like Rabbi Yehuda? Have another source. Typically, mehechet denafkele Rabbi Yehuda. Learn, you young student, learn the source from where Rabbi Yehuda learned the source that you're not allowed to eat. They're not allowed to benefit from chametz because it's pasuk says by treifa lakelef tashlichin oisay. You're allowed to throw it to your dog. So therefore, only treifa you're allowed to benefit throwing it to your dog. But chametz b'pesach and shara niskol, you're not allowed to benefit by throwing it to your dog. So I have a source. So the Gemara says, Kesavar, he holds chulin shneshachta bozora daraisa. So he holds, what did this student hold? That from the oisay I learned that only treifa you're allowed to benefit from it. But if you take a chulin, a piece of animal, let's say an animal that's a regular animal, non-sacred animal, that you shechted it in the Beis HaMikdash, you're also not allowed to benefit from it. So basically, what this student said, this pasuk cannot be a source for chametz because I need the oisoi to tell me that only treifa you're allowed to benefit from, but chulin that was slaughtered in the Beis HaMikdash, that you're not allowed to benefit from it. So this oisa is teaching me something. So now we're back to square one. Where would I know another source that's going to tell me that chametz b'Pesach is also b'hana? That's the question. So you hear what question is? Where the student didn't like any of the other sources because the Torah only says by chametz, you're not allowed to eat it. So the student wanted to know a source of where Do you know that on Pesach, chametz b'Pesach, you're not allowed to, not only you can't eat it, but you can't benefit from it. So let's just give you the highlights, and that's the Gemara is going to fly. The Gemara is going to give three possible sources, and all of them have to do with different psukim. So we're going to reference these psukim, and the Gemara is going to finally say one source, and that's the whole daf. So Menayin, what is the source? Back into the Gemara. 3 lines on the bottom, Chaf Gimel and Beis. The Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, Kol Chatesh Sheyuva Medama. Let's read the pasuk inside. The pasuk says, any chatas, you know, a carbon chatas, you're supposed to sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach. So what happened? This guy, instead of sprinkling it on the mizbeach, he brought the blood inside the main temple and sprinkled it inside the Beis Hamikdash. So the pasuk says, if you take a chatas and you're supposed to sprinkle it outside on the outside mizbeach, and you brought it into the main sanctuary, loy seyachel, that chatas is no good. You can't eat it, but you have to burn it. So there's a redundancy. If it says you can't eat it, certainly you're supposed to burn it. So I know from this pasuk I know that you can't. I know that you're supposed to get rid of it from leisei achel. You can't eat it. So that's the Gemara's source. So if it shouldn't say be'eshti sarif in that pasuk. Ma tamad loyma be'eshti sarif. Why do you need to tell me that you're supposed to burn it? If it's not to teach you that you're supposed to burn it, because I have another source, the ksiv, that you're supposed to burn, a chatas that you bring inside the sanctuary. If you bring the blood inside the sanctuary, I have another pasuk that says you're supposed to burn it. The ksiv, it says in the pasuk, v'hinei soira. Moshe was angry why they burnt the seir nachshon. That's what we're dealing with in Hanukkah. Anyway, the seir nachshon that they brought in the inauguration of the Mishkan, and Moshe saw that the children of Aaron are not eating that seir nachshon, the chatas that Nachshon brought on that day. He was the nasi that brought extra offerings on that day, and the kohanim were supposed to eat it. And Moshe walked into the Mishkan and saw they burnt it up. They didn't eat it, and then Moshe asked, "What happened? Did you bring the blood by accident inside the Mishkan? And that's the reason why you burnt it?" So we see from that pasuk alone that you're supposed to burn a chatas that by accident you brought inside the Mishkan. So therefore, I don't need be'eshti saref in this pasuk. So watch how wild the Gemara is going to go. The Gemara is going to take, if it's not needed over here, you apply it that you're supposed to burn and not benefit from chametz or the stoned ox. It's eina inyan, you apply it to over here. That's what the Gemara is going to say. And that's one of the klolim halacha l'shmeish sinai. In eina inyan legufa, if the pasuk is not needed for its own purpose, the ksiv inay sarv, tnei in nechol yisurim shebetorah, you apply it to other yisurim of the Torah. We go on daf chaf daled amud aleph. Then eina inyan achila. If it's not supposed to tell me that you're supposed to eat it, you're not allowed to eat it, because by eating it, I know from another pasuk that you're not allowed to eat chametz. Tnei inyan yasana, it's coming to tell you that you're not allowed to benefit from chametz b'Pesach. So we have a pasuk by kachim that not necessary by kachim, and we apply it to tell you that by chametz, that idea is supposed to apply, that you're not allowed to benefit from it, and you're supposed to burn it. And that's one of the, Rashi says, that's one of the halacha l'Moshe Messinais. If you don't need it for this, you apply it to somewhere else. So the Gemara says, would you say that just like kachim, you have to burn it? So also, everywhere in the Torah, all these isurim, chametz b'Pesach, you have to burn it. And that's not the source. We know you can really get rid of the chametz by throwing it in the wind or dropping it down the sink. Amakra, the pasuk says, "B'kodesh b'eshti sarei." The Torah says only kachim you have to burn. B'kodesh b'sreifa vein kilusurim sheb'Torah b'sreifa. So the Torah says over here, "B'kodesh lo yiseiachel b'eshti sarei." B'kodesh is only supposed to be burned, not chametz b'Pesach. So here's the source. The Gemara here's the source b'eshti sarei. Back into the Gemara. So the Gemara says, wait a second. The Gemara doesn't like that. If that's what B'kodesh Beishti Sareif is teaching you, that chametz b'Pesach can be, you don't have to burn it. It's only kachim you have to burn. I need it for another teaching. I need it to teach me the teaching of Rab Shimon taught us. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Rab Shimon says, Ba'kodesh ba'esh tisarev. You're supposed to burn it in the temple. Limate, it comes to teach you al chatos, on a chatos that became invalidated. Let's say it became tameh. You can't just burn it on the street. You have to burn it in the Beis HaMikdash. Asarfin oisa ba'kodesh. And not only that, ve'elu lezubabad. Not only a chatos became invalidated, but pesule koche kochim. Any type of koche kochim that became invalidated. For example, mincha and oila and osram that became tameh, or the blood was spilled, or a mincha that you didn't make kmitza, or the eimurei kochim kalim, the fats and the limbs that are supposed to be brought onto the mizbeach that became tameh. So now other things that were invalidated, menayim, how do I know they're supposed to be burnt in the Beis HaMikdash, not sent to sanitation somewhere outside the Beis HaMikdash? Talmud loima ma kodesh beis tisaref. You have to burn it in the temple. So therefore, what he's saying is that this extra ma kodesh beis tisaref is not extra. This you wanted to learn from this pasuk, but beis tisaref, to teach you on chametz, that chametz you're not allowed to benefit from it. That can't be, because Ba'kodesh Be'ez Tisaref, I need it for something else. That's coming to teach me that things that became invalidated, you're supposed to burn it in the Kodesh. You're supposed to burn it in the temple. So this is not extra anymore to teach me anything about chametz. So again, back to the drawing board. Where do we find a source that you're supposed to burn? Where's the source that you could yet not allowed to benefit from chametz? Amalei, Rabbi Yonis, Amalei. So the student said, Rabbi Yonason, Rabach Mahaikra Kamalom. Rabbi Yonason, your Rebbe, Ravina, learned it from this pasuk. In other words, this student spoke it over in front of his Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani asked him and said, the source that you just told me is no good. So the student says, I have another source, and I got this source from Rabbi Yonason. The pasuk says, V'mivasim v'psar ha'malugim and nachmash la'boike. But the pasuk says what? That if you leave over from the miluim and anything noiser, you have to burn it. B'sraftes and noiser be'esh. Lo ye'achel, you're not allowed to eat it. Oh, lo ye'achel. If it tells you you're supposed to burn the leftovers, why does the Torah tells me not to eat it? So again, in the main Indian, but so ein Talmud loymer that Chumash doesn't have to tell me lo yechel, that you're not allowed to eat the leftovers, because it already tells me you have to burn it. Certainly you're not allowed to eat it. Ma Talmud loymer lo yechel. Why does the Chumash say you're not allowed to eat it? Meina in legufa. If it's not teaching you that noiser is not allowed to be eaten, it says you're supposed to burn in a fire. Certainly you can't eat it. You give it to other isurim shabbatayra, that other isurim of Torah, which is chametz b'Pesach and shar niskel, that you're not allowed to eat it. Wait, but I don't need them. If I don't need it to teach me that you're not allowed to eat chametz and shar niskel, because the Chumash says explicitly so, it's coming to teach you that an isur hana applies by chametz b'Pesach. Maybe you're going to say that just like noiser has to be burnt, so I would think that every other isser, chametz b'Pesach and shar niskel, should be burnt. Amakra, v'sarafta es ha-noiser, only noiser b'sreifa, only noiser is supposed to be burnt. Ein kol isurim sheb'Torah b'sreifa, and all the isurim of the Torah cannot be b'sreifa. So therefore, again, what's the Gemara's source? Lo ye'achel. This word lo ye'achel is extra. We don't need it by noiser. So it teaches me by chametz b'Pesach that you're not allowed to eat it, but of course you don't need it to teach you not allowed to eat chametz. It must be teaching you you're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to benefit from it. It's a funny thing how the Chumash will write a strange lo ye'achel by something on a totally different topic, and the Chachamim understood that it doesn't mean on that topic; it's applying to something totally different. So now the Gemara says that can't be a good source. Is it coming to teach you that? I needed to teach me what Rabbi Lazar taught us. Some Rabbi Lazar, lo ya'achel ki koydeshu, kol shebekoydes posel ba kosel litin loisa se'al chilosan. I needed to teach me what Rabbi Lazar taught us. He says that anything that becomes invalidated, you're not allowed to eat it. There's a lav in the Torah to eat it because it says lo ye'ochel. Had the Chumash not written lo ye'ochel, I would have thought there's only a mitzvah to burn noiser. How do you know you're not allowed to eat noiser? That's why I need lo ye'ochel. And not only that, it's not only teaching me you're not allowed to eat noiser, it's teaching me any other thing that's invalidated. For example, pirgel, or let's say the blood got spilled out, or any other psul in karbanos, lo ye'ochel. You have a lav to eat it. Not that just a mitzvah to burn it, but you also have a lav to eat it. So it's needed for its source. It's needed at its location. It can't be used for another location. It needs to be to tell me that not only there's a mitzvah to burn it, but it's also a lav of the Torah to eat it. So therefore, this pasuk, topic number 3, is not extra. So the Gemara goes back and says, Amar Abaya, La'olam mikra kama. La'olam, I'll learn it from the first pasuk, the epuch. I'm not going to say the opposite. The lichtei bo'esh tisarev, v'loi boya loi te'ochel. That means that the Chumash is saying, all right, I'll grant you that the Torah had to write in the first pasuk that we discussed, bo'esh tisarev, that you're supposed to burn it. And the Torah did not have to write, you cannot eat it. Ma Talmud loi loi te'ochel. Why did the Torah write loi te'ochel? And any Indian legufa, if you don't eat it, the nafkalei with the Rabbi Lazar, because I learned how to lav from Rabbi Lazar. Tnei in lechol yishum to the Torah. And any in lachila, tnei in yisar no. And the Gemara says, "Ima kam b'sreifa, av kol yisurim sheb'Torah b'sreifa, or makra hanoisa b'seifa, ein kol yisurim sheb'Torah b'sreifa." What the Gemara just now said. Let's go back to the first pasuk. Okay, you told me that the eish tisaref is not good. I needed to teach me that everything has to be burnt in the temple. When you're burning something, it has to be burnt in the temple. Okay, so the eish tisaref is needed, but lo say ochel is not needed because it says any chatas that you accidentally brought the blood into the main sanctuary, the Torah could have written, just burn it. Why does the Torah write, you're not allowed to eat it? Now, maybe the Torah is coming to teach you a lav, that you're not allowed to eat that chatas, that once you invalidated the blood of the chatas by bringing it inside the sanctuary, you're not allowed to eat it. I have this universal lav, lo ye'echel, that applies for any kachim that got invalidated. There's a lav of the Torah, you can't eat it. So this lo ye'echel now is extra. Oh, this lo ye'echel now is extra. And so therefore the Gemara is going to say, now, since it's not needed over here, it's coming to teach you chametz and the ox, you're not allowed to eat it. I don't need it to teach me that you're not allowed to eat chametz because the Chumash says you can't eat chametz. So this extra word is teaching me you can't benefit from chametz. So we'll be back to pasuk 1, but using a different word. So the Gemara says, Omalei Rapapa Labaya. So Rabapa says to Abaya, Ve'ema liyichude leilav gufei hu da'aseh. The imid Rabbi Loza ein loikin alav shebeklolos. In other words, what the Gemara's question now is that maybe I need lo yisei to be specific to apply a specific lav that a chatas that you brought the blood inside, you get a specific lav not to eat it. Because if I just learned it from this lo yechal, this is like a universal lav that includes not only this chatas that you brought a penima, includes pigel, nicer, and many other things, or where the blood was spilled out. But you wouldn't get malchus on a universal lav. It's a lav, but you don't get malchus. That's why the Torah wrote a specific lav over here. That means that if this chatas was brought into the sanctuary, specifically you're not allowed to eat it. And if you would eat it, you would get malchus on it. So that's what the Gemara is now saying. And that's why Dimid Rabbi Lazar, if I only learned it from what Rabbi Lazar just said, ein loikin alav shebeklolos. This is a general lav, you don't get malchus on. So the Gemara says, Elamar Papa, I have the source. And this is going to be the final source of where we know that you're not allowed to benefit from chametz from Pesach. The pasuk says, a meat, a kosher, a kosher meat that touches anything that tamei, lo yechel, don't eat it. If you have to burn it. She'ein tamid lo yechel. It doesn't have to tell me lo yechel. You can't eat it. If you're telling me that it became tamei, the meat became tamei, you have to burn it. Certainly you can't eat it. Ma tamid lo yechel. Why does the Torah say you can't eat it? If you don't eat it for its own place, its own local place, to hanafkale mekal v'choimer, mimaisa hakal. I know I have a lav from somewhere else that you're not allowed to eat the kachim that became tamei because I have a kal v'choimer. What's the kal v'chomer? Ma ma'isa kal, just ma'isa sheni. That's very lenient because you don't get chorus if you eat ma'isa sheni that became tamei. Amra Torah, the Torah says lo bi'artim imem b'tamei. You're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to eat ma'isa sheni when you're tamei, or when the ma'isa sheni is tamei. You're not allowed to eat it. So basar kodesh, holy meat, kosher meat, right? Sacrificial meat. Chomer, which is more strict. Like kolshkein, of course there would be a lav that you can't eat it. So that we have a lav by kosher. So therefore, this lo echel is extra. The Gemara asks back, don't you want to say, how could you say that? Ein mazhira min adin. We have a rule that you can't invent your own lav from logic of a kal v'chomer. You can't invent your own logic. This is one of the famous axioms in the Gemara. You can't invent your own kal alav, loisa say in the Torah, just because you see that there's a loisa say in a lighter topic, you're going to say that there's now the loisa say in something more chomer, so stricter. You can't make your own kal v'chomers. So the Gemara says, okay, but there's a halacha l'maishim Sinai called a hekeshehu. A hekesh is like a linkage. And when Torah puts two things that are not related together, to compare them, you can't ask any questions. They are compared. And the ksiv, the pasuk says, the Torah compares ma'aser sheni to kachem. So therefore, we know all the lavim that apply by ma'aser sheni apply by kachem. If there's a lav not to eat tamei ma'aser sheni, fruits of ma'aser sheni became tamei, there's a lav. So also by kachem, there's a lav there also that you can't eat tamei kachem. So this is the point. The point is that this pasuk, this lo ye'achel, is extra because I don't need it. I know a lav that you're not allowed to eat kachem that became tamei from somewhere else. So now the Gemara says, if it's not needed at its local place, it's teaching you by some other issur in the Torah. If it's not teaching you now to eat, for example, chametz b'Pesach, that you're not allowed to benefit from Pesach. Just like kachim, you're supposed to burn it. The pasuk says hanoiser b'sreifa. Only noiser gets burnt, and chametz b'Pesach shar niskel do not have to get burned. So therefore, that's what the source is. The source is that third pasuk that we brought up. I keep bringing that up. The third pasuk that we brought up. We just take it out of its context and throw it to chametz b'Pesach. They teach you not a lot of benefit from it. So the Gemara is going to ask now, maybe keep it by this pasuk over here, and it's trying to give you an extra lav that you're not allowed to eat a piece of meat that became tamei. Leave it to where it is. And Gemara says, Amalei Ravina Ravashi, the Eibar, let us say, lav or olav b'shnei lav. Maybe the chumash, you get two lavs when you eat basar that became tamei. One lav you learn from ma'aser sheni, and one lav the Torah wrote it extra time. Now, why would the Torah give you two lavim for doing one thing wrong? Where do you find that in the Torah? We find that on eating shratzim, where eating insects. Lav mi Omar Abaya. Abaya said, "Ochal petisa." If you eat like a tadpole, loika arba, you get 4 malchus for eating one tadpole. Namala, if you eat an ant, loika chamish, you will get 5 malchus. You see, the Torah eats sira. If you eat a hornet, like a sheish, you get 6 malchus. See, the Torah it was very makbin on eating these type of crawling creatures, and not only do you get one avera, you get so many averas, and that's why we're so very strict when it comes to the lettuce on Pesach to make sure that the lettuce don't have any bugs in them. It used to be much more of a problem years ago, but because everybody understood that a person, if you have a whole seder full of people and everybody's eating just a couple of bugs there, how many lavim they were over in that little seder. So anyway, so we see a concept that the Chumash does add on lavim to isurim, to averis. You could get more than one lav. So maybe this lo yachal is not extra. Maybe it's trying to tell you that basar kachim, if you eat it with tamei, when you're tamei, you get more than one lav. So Ravina answered that true. If I have no choice, then I say that the Torah made it an extra lav. But here, I could use it to somewhere else. I can use it and tell me that it's teaching me some other din by chametz. So I have a solution to the problem. I don't say that it's trying to add more lavim to something that has already a lav. Then the Gemara just asks two more side questions. Since we just said, look at this pasuk. We just said that lo yechel means that you're not allowed to eat chametz, so you're not allowed to benefit from chametz. So this whole pasuk is extra. Vahabasar ashiga. What is vahabasar coming to add? Meat. It's really talking about chametz, meat that became tamei. You're not allowed to eat. So what's this coming to teach me? It's not teaching me that you're not allowed to eat tamei meat because I have other lavim in the Torah that teach you can't eat tamei meat. So the Gemara says, the Reisha Lamali, what do you need it from the beginning? L'rabes eitzim l'boino, wood and spices. That normally wood and spices don't become tamei, but in the Beis Hamikdash, wood would become tamei because vahabasar includes not just meat, but even wood and levoina, even things that are frankincense would become tamei. And also you should know that in the Beis Hamikdash, like outside the Beis Hamikdash, you always have to sprinkle water on an item of food in order to make it susceptible to tumah. But in the Beis Hamikdash, we have this concept called chibas hakodesh, which means that automatically things could become susceptible to tumah. And we see even wood and levoina are susceptible to tumah in the Beis Hamikdash. Then the pasuk ends off. Abasa kol tahor yoichel basa. Why does the end pasuk end off that all meat, if it's good, then if kol tahor, only somebody who's clean can eat the basar. What is that coming to say? To say for lamali, what do I need it? It's extra because I have it something else. So the Gemara says, l'rabes emerim. That's coming to teach you that if the fats became tamei, you're not allowed to eat it. So not only if the fats became tamei, you're eating tamei fats, but the emerim, which was supposed to be brought on the mizbeach, you get an extra avera for eating the fats, even though it's tamei. So the Gemara says, emerim mahasam nafker. I learned it from that pasuk. I learned it from the Tanya. We learned it in the Brisa. That anybody who eats from the Sar Zevach Hashlamim Asher Hashem, it's that Asher Hashem l'rabes is Amorim. That's Marba the Amorim. That if they became tamei and a tahor person eats it, he gets two lavim. One lav of zarus. That means you're not allowed to eat it. This is supposed to belong on the mizbeach. Even a kohen is not allowed to eat the emer. This is supposed to be offered on the mizbeach. And also, you get the lav of tumas basar. And therefore, so we have already a source for that. So what is the second part of teaching me? And the Gemara hasam tumas aguf bekaris. If you are tamei, then you're not allowed to eat the emerim, and if you do, you get kares. Hacha, this pasuk tumas basar. It's talking about where the meat became tamei, and you get a lav. So you read the pasuk like this: "Basar ashiga b'chol tamei," and this basar includes the emerim that became tamei. So then, only if it's tahor you can eat it. But if you're not tahor, if the meat is not tahor or the emerim is not tahor, you're not allowed to eat it. Lo yechel, you're not allowed to eat it. You get a lav, but you don't get karas for that. So we just concluded the Gemara, and so ends the Gemara. So again, we have three sources of where you know that you're not allowed to eat chametz b'Pesach, and you're not allowed to benefit from chametz b'Pesach. Source number one is lo ye'achel. Lo ye'achel means you're not allowed to benefit from chametz b'Pesach. Rabbi Bo had an opinion. It says la kelev tashlichin oisoi. That means only treifa you're permitted to benefit from, but not chametz b'Pesach. And then the final is a wild source where the Torah has a pasuk lo ye'achel that tells me by kachim meat that became tamei you're not allowed to eat it. I don't need it to teach it to me here. So the Gemara says that you use it and teaches me that you're not allowed to eat chametz. Well, eating chametz, I know already. The Chumash says you're not allowed to eat chametz. It must mean that you're not allowed to benefit from chametz. Okay, another 2 minutes and we'll finish. A new Gemara. Amar Rabbi Abo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Kol isurin shebeTorah. Any isur of the Torah. You don't get malchus only if you eat it in the normal fashion. Give me an example of something that it wouldn't work. It comes to include if you eat the fats raw, you're potter. Okay, so this was the fats that we spoke about yesterday. This part over here is usser because you could easily peel it off. You could, I once saw them do that. You could peel off this fats. It's not ingrained in the meat. So if you eat this raw, according to Rabbi Yochanan said you're potter, because that's not the normal way to eat it. You eat it cooked, right? Others have another say. This is what Rabbi Yochanan said. If you only benefit from it in the normal way. What is that excluding? What's that excluding? Excludes. You know, an ox that's supposed to be stoned, you're not allowed to benefit from it. And a guy took the fats of the shara niskal and he smeared it al gabe makose on top of his wound to try to, as a schmear. That's not the normal way you use fats. You eat it normally. So he's benefiting from something that you're not supposed to benefit, but he's doing it in a not normal fashion. Shu potter, that you're potter in the Torah. The Kolsh came certainly oichel chelev chai, if you eat the raw fats of a regular animal, shu potter, that you're potter. Itmanami, Amar Abacha, Bar Avi, Amar Asi, Amar Yochanan, Hiniya chelev shashar niskal agabe makose. If you put the fats of a char niskal on top of a wound, we're learning something about refuah today, and if you put fats of a shar niskal on top of your wound, you're benefiting from it, but you're potter. The malchus was only if you benefit from something the normal way, but the non-normal way, you don't get malchus. It's actually a mishnah. You don't get malchus. If you eat orla, the juices of a fruit, let's say you have apple, that's orla fruit, and you squeeze it and make apple juice, you don't get malchus on it, because that's not the normal way to eat an apple. Ella yotzim and azeisim in an oven. If whatever comes out of olives or grapes, that is normal. You eat olive oil or grape juice, then that's the lav of orla. Because although it's not the fruits, that juice is considered like eating the fruit. If you eat berry juice or fig juice or pomegranate juice, you won't get malchus because that's the normal way. My time it lav bishum b'loika ochel derech enosim. So the Mishnah seems to say that the reason why you're potter, you don't get malchus, because you didn't eat it the normal way. In those days, they didn't eat juice, eating pomegranate juice. If a person eats pomegranate juice, although it's arla, you wouldn't get malchus, because that's not the normal way. So it's a proof from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah lines up with what Rabbi Yochanan says, that in order to be chayav malchus, you have to eat it the normal fashion. Amalei, Abaya, no. If the Mishnah would have said an example of a fruit, you're eating the fruit itself, but you're not eating it in the normal way. For example, you take a walnut and you cook it. Now, no, people don't eat cooked walnuts. So and the Mishnah would say, if you do that to a walnut, you'll be potter, then shopper. Then you would have a nice proof to Rabbi Yochanan. Elahocha, by over here, Mishum Zeya Ba'almahu, the juice that comes out of these type of fruits are not really juice. They're just water. And they're not considered the fruit. So it's not like you didn't eat it the normal way. The reason why you're potter is because it's not the fruit. So therefore you're potter. It's not teaching you what Rabbi Yochanan said. And you see that in the Hilchas Brachas, on apple juice, orange juice, you're not making bar priya eitz. You're making shahakol ni'bavari because it's the water from the juice. That's the reason why this Mishnah says you don't get malchus if you eat the juices of fruits. If it's orla, only from zaysim and anavim. So that's not a proof to Rabbi Yochanan. But Rabbi Yochanan still stands, and we'll leave it for there, that if you eat it in the non-normal fashion, you don't get malchus, because the issue is only if you eat it the normal way. And this is the source of the people eating treifa food and vitamins and capsules and things like that. This is the source of why it's kosher, because especially if you're doing it for refuah, it's because it's not normal fashion, and that wasn't part of the issur of the Torah. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Good Nacht, everybody. Okay. So ends Daf Chof Daled.
Good Chodesh.
Good Chodesh, everybody. Freilich and Chanukah.
Okay.